Hi, everybody.
Hi, Andrew.
I'll just pray and then we'll get started for the night. Dear Lord, I want to thank you so much for letting us come here tonight. It means so much to me. I'm so excited to be in this building. And I recognize that you've brought each and every one of us here tonight intentionally for a purpose to turn our gaze towards you and to learn about you and from you. So I pray that we are able to do that, that as we dive into your word and as we talk about your truth, that it can just rest in our hearts and it can be something that we carry with us for our lives. Just pray you give us a good rest of the night. In your name, amen. So I think for little kids, one of the scariest moments that you can go through is that moment where you realize that you're like in public with your parents, you get distracted by something, you kind of wander off. And then once you're done with that, you look back and realize your parents are gone, right? Like if you ever experience that, you know it's this immediate like anxiety and fear, because like, oh my gosh, where are they? And you get these kids like in grocery stores. There's a big place like zoos. You get kids like running one way, mom's running the other way. Nobody can find each other. It's chaos. And for little kids, that's terrifying. Did any of you like have that as kids? Like, can you think of a time you got lost? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean. I can remember one specific moment in my childhood where that happened to me was at Disney World. We had just gotten off of a ride, and I decided on my own free will, I didn't talk to anybody about this, that I was going to be nice and get the stroller that we were using to push Joe around. So I went over to the stroller section, where they keep them, and I was looking for it, and what I didn't know was that my aunt, who wasn't on the ride, had already gotten the stroller and gone with my parents, and they had all moved along. And me, the dumb one, was stuck looking for a stroller that wasn't even there. So I'm looking for way too long, and then I realized, maybe I'm missing something, so I turn around, and sure enough, my whole family has just disappeared. I have no idea where they are. And you think a little kid alone in Disney World sounds like a great time, but I was not having a great time. I was not a particularly brave kid, so I was crying pretty much immediately. And I was running around looking for them. Eventually, I found a very nice guy that worked at Disney World. I do not know what his job was, but at that moment, I was his job now. Like he had to, look after me and take care of this crying kid trying to find his parents. And he was trying his best to be nice. He was like, so where are you from? Like, Ohio. Okay, you like the Browns? And this poor guy from that point on was trying to talk sports with me. And if any of you know me and you've tried to talk sports with me, you know it doesn't work. I don't really have anything to say on the subject, so it was an awkward moment with this guy. But eventually found my parents again. I remember sitting next to my cousin like, dude, I've been through some crap, man. Like I was gone for so long. I was like acting like it was a horrible thing. But for a little kid, it is, right? Being alone like that, when you don't expect it, is terrifying. And I think that fear that we all felt as kids is something that we actually grow up with. And that it's pretty universal around all of us, that fear of being alone. And I'm not talking about like being home alone, because I'm sure a lot of you guys like that. Like, you can play your music as loud as you want to. Nobody can tell you no. That's not the kind of alone I'm talking about. I'm talking about that alone, of that fear of being like lonely. Right? When we're kids, it's that moment of, where the heck is my mom? I can't find her. And as we grow up, it kind of becomes that fear of worrying about who likes you and who doesn't like you. Like, why doesn't this person like me? How do I make this person like me? And all of a sudden, like, our minds start to worry. It becomes more complex than just being alone. It's worrying about, do I have people with me? Because I think as humans, we all need to know that we have somebody that's on our side. Right? We need to know there's somebody in our corner. There's somebody who will be there with us to support us. That's why we have friends. Right? Friends are necessary. That's why we stick to our family. That's why we have loved ones. It's because we have that deep-rooted need inside of us to have somebody there. And when that doesn't happen, it unlocks that fear, and you start to be worried and anxious about it. And so I think, you see it with your parents, as kids, and then with your friends. I think that same fear, that same reality can affect our relationship with God, right? And it doesn't look the same as with other people because it's not actually there. I think that when we experience that fear and that feeling like, is God actually there? Is God close to me? I feel really far from God. I think that happens when we're looking at our lives, the circumstances of our lives, and we're like, these aren't looking too good, Like there's a lot that's happening to you that you're like, it's constantly weighing me down. I feel so sad all the time. I feel like so far away from God. Or if it's anger, people keep upsetting you. You're like, where the heck is God in this? Like, I need to be comforted, but I don't feel comforted. I feel alone. I feel like I'm by myself, right? And I think that when that fear starts to set, that's a very bad place to be. If you've ever been there, you know it's not a fun place to be. Of feeling alone from God and feeling like God is far away. So tonight I want to look into the Bible, just a couple of small verses to talk about what God has to say about that issue. And so tonight we're going to be looking into the book of Deuteronomy. How often do you guys hear a lesson from the book of Deuteronomy? I'm bringing out something special tonight, okay? I'm tapping into the Old Testament. You're not going to get that just anywhere. So you're welcome is what I'm saying. But to set the stage for these verses, just to give a brief history of what the Israelites at this point have been through. The Jewish people, the Israelites, were slaves in Egypt. They were beaten, they were pushed down, and they were told what to do for decades, for centuries. And then finally one day God said to Moses, like, dude, okay, we got to get these guys out of here. It's time for them to go because I promised their ancestors that I would make a huge nation out of them. I promised their ancestors this plot of land so that one day they could inhabit it, and that I would use this land. I've designed this place to bless them. And so he's looking at them in slavery. He says, Moses, we've got to get these guys out of here. It's time to get them home. So with God's help, Moses gets all the Israelites out. This is an action that most of them ended up just being angry about because they were an angry people. And so at any given time, pretty much Moses was the only person that was really focused on paying attention to God and what he wanted. And there was even a moment where Moses disobeyed God in anger. And so God's like, you know what, guys? Okay, it's not that long of a trip to get from Egypt to Israel. It's going to take you guys 40 years now. It doesn't take 40 years to get there, but it's going to take 40 years for you guys. He's pretty much just like them on timeout. So that you can think about what they've done or whatever. So after this 40 years, they get to the edge of Israel and this wilderness they've been. And Moses, he comes up and he's like, okay, guys, I got to cover a few things. First of all, the place that we're going into, there's a lot of people there, and they want you dead because you want their land. So we have to kill them all. We have to go to war to get this land back. And they're like, dude, we've been wandering the desert for 40 years. We're not like a warrior nation, right? We just want to like sit down for a minute. We're not prepared to go to war. We're small. They're big. It's not going to work out. He's like, okay, I hear you. But also, I'm going to die. I'm just going to die real quick, so you're going to have to go in without me. And they're like, we've been following you for over 40 years now. In Egypt, out of Egypt, through the desert. And now you're just going to leave us alone, like when we need you. So Israel's going to have all these fears about looking forward in their life and saying, like, things aren't looking so good. Just like we can look at our own lives and say, like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. This is a lot for me to handle, right? And so that fear of like, are we alone in this? We're just a small nation. We're just one person. How do I navigate this, right? So, and Moses is speaking in this chapter, in chapter 31. He's basically giving his farewell address to the Israelites, saying like goodbye, and he's addressing some of these fears because he knows that they're going to have these fears. They're completely logical, and so he wants to comfort them and lead them into a place where they can move on and do what they're supposed to do without him. And so just to cover this couple of verses, he's talking with them about what this looks like. And then in Deuteronomy 31, verse 6, he says, be strong and courageous. Do not fear or be in dread of them, for the Lord your God who goes with you. And then catch this, okay? Catch this. He will not leave you or forsake you. He will not leave you or forsake you. If there's one thing that I want you to get in your minds from tonight, it's just that truth. It even says that two verses later in verse 8 because it's that important. It is the Lord who goes before you. He will be with you. He will not leave you or forsake you. Right? What that's saying is God will never leave you. God will never abandon you. God will never leave you uncomforted. He will never leave you to fail. He will never walk away from where you're at. And I know that sounds like such a simple concept, right? Because ultimately everything I'm talking about boils down into that point. It sounds simple, but I want you guys to drill it into your heads, and I want you guys to make sure it rests on your hearts. Because there's times that I need to remind myself of that truth. Seasoned Christians, people who have been saved and believers for decades, need to remind themselves of that truth when things get hard. So I want you guys to become familiar with that. It even says way later on down the line, Or it's just something you need to remind yourself of. It says in Hebrews chapter 13, it says, keep your life free from love of money and be content with what you have. It's basically saying, don't pay attention to the things that don't matter. Get your eyes off of these things that are going to distract you. And he says, be content with what you have. For he has said, I will never leave you or forsake you. So this is a promise we keep seeing coming up throughout the Bible. And Deuteronomy and Hebrews are written thousands of years apart. That means that this promise, it extends all throughout history. It applies to every person that has ever lived since God said that. And it applies to you and to me just the same. Let's see. Can I have, really quickly, just one volunteer? I need 30 seconds of your time. I saw Jeremy's hand so quick. Get over here, Jeremy. Everybody, Jeremy is God. I want you all to say hi to God. Okay. Okay. So, you're in a relationship with God, you're hanging out with God, you're doing this kind of stuff. Like, hi God, how you doing? No actual handshaking because of COVID. So, my attention's focused on God, right? But just like a kid in the store, you get distracted by something, right? And then you're looking at your life now. You're paying attention to the things going on in your life. And sometimes when you look at your life, things might seem okay, right? Sometimes you're like, yeah, I got lots of friends. I got money. Things are going the way I expected them to. Everything is gold. Hate to say it, that doesn't usually last. So either it might not say that way, or you might look at your life sometimes and say, wow, that's a mess. Things are not looking great right now. This is not like what I wanted. And it's in those moments, like we talked about, that you might start to feel like God is far away from you, because you're noticing all of these things that are going wrong, and you're fixating on them, and you're paying attention to them. And so you're standing here screaming like, God, where the heck are you? I feel like I'm so far from you. I can't seem to find you. It feels like you've walked away. But what did God promise? It's never to leave us or forsake us, because the secret is he's been right next to you the whole time. Right? He's right there. It's Jeremy. He never left. We just decided something else was worth our attention. And so in the midst of crying out, like, where the heck did God go? I feel like I'm alone in this. He's right there. You just got to look for him. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you for standing there. Here's a snap. But yeah, so we're pretty much out of the time I have for tonight, but I want to leave you with two applications, two things I really want you to take from this. And it's, if you're in a place where you feel like God is far away, if you're in a bad situation, if you're sad about something that's happening in your life, the band can start to come back up now. If you feel like God has walked away, look for him. I can promise you he's there. You're going to feel like he's not there, but you should trust what you know. And what you know is this promise that he made that he will always be there. So I can promise you this. If you need to find him, he's not that far away. He will never abandon you or leave you alone. That's what you should do if you're in a position where you're like, where is God? It's as simple as look for him. Pray to him. Reach out for comfort. Read your Bible. And if you're in a position where things seem good, things aren't going horribly, look for him anyway. Because the unfortunate truth of this world is that those good things are all temporary. Everything this world has to offer is temporary. But he is always good. And he will always be there, right beside you when you need him.